Destiny 2, your Guardian's super is their most powerful asset, and because of that, it takes a long time to recharge. But what if you created a build that sped things up significantly? Today, we're going to look at a build in progress that generates an absurd amount of super energy for the Stormcaller's Attunement of Control. Let's get started. The core of this build are the exotic boots, the Geomag Stabilizers. These boots have the trait Close Enough. When your Chaos Reach supercharge reaches about 80%, sprinting will massively increase your supercharge rate until it's full. Additionally, hits with Chaos Reach extend its duration, which significantly increases its power. The Geomag Stabilizers will shave off huge chunks of time from our super generation, but there's a lot more we can do to speed things up. Since our super meter fills up faster when we get to the close enough point with the Geomags, I want to reach that point as quickly as possible. I've been collecting armor with a high stat roll on intelligence, and I've managed to get my Guardian's base intelligence to 75. With one intelligence mod that brings us to 85, which puts us in tier 8, which gives our super a cooldown of 4 minutes. But because of the Geomags, our actual base super cooldown is closer to 3 minutes. Now, unfortunately, this build is a work in progress, so I haven't collected all the pieces to make it work perfectly, but we've got a great foundation. There are a lot of mechanics at play that we can leverage. Orb generation from a masterwork weapon will see our super gains increase, but to make things absurd, the Bad Juju exotic pulse rifle is the way to go. I'm currently working on getting the catalyst for the Bad Juju, and once that happens, things will go insane. The exotic trait on the Bad Juju is String of Curses. It causes kills to refill the magazine, increase damage dealt, and increase super generation based on the strength of String of Curses when a kill was made. Next, we can look to our class item for super generating mods. I don't have any super generating mods for weapons, but I do have Dynamo and Distribution. Dynamo grants super energy when using your class ability in proximity to enemies, and Distribution reduces the cooldown of all abilities and grants super energy when using your class ability in proximity to enemies. With both of these stacked together, we'll shave off about 20 seconds from our super recharge duration with just one Rift activation. Finally, the passive ability Ionic Traces from the Attunement of Control will give us super energy and reduce all of our cooldowns whenever we pick one up. That's a lot of information to process, but we're going to talk about it more in the field. It's time for some testing. Okay, people, for today's testing, we are doing the Arms Dealer Nightfall Strike. This is an oldie, but a goodie. There's a lot of chaos going on in this Nightfall, as you can see already. We've got some Fallen fighting against the Cabal, but we're not going to concern ourselves with that. We're just going to do what we came here to do, and that is manipulate our super energy with the Bad Juju and the Ionic Traces. And also, I want to activate my Rift in proximity to enemies so that I get that extra super energy that way. The best way a build like this is going to shine is if you're making use of all of the mechanics as often as you can. So there are going to be instances when I place down a Rift, even if I don't necessarily need the healing. That might screw me over in the future, but I'm not worried about future me. All I'm worried about is generating super energy as quickly as possible. We've already passed the halfway point. We're almost at the close enough spot, and we haven't even gotten into the first major section of the Nightfall, so we're doing pretty well for ourselves. Now we've got a Thresher to deal with. As soon as it becomes more stationary, I'm going to fire a rocket at it and take it out. Now I'm going to sit back and use the Bad Juju as much as I can. Unfortunately, I'll have to take out my fusion rifle occasionally to deal with some shields. I do have my Rift, so I'm going to run up to these guys. Probably a bit of a risky move, but I wanted to get into that close enough point. Now I'm going to sprint and just go for it. Clear out as much as I possibly can. Then we're going to cut it off early to save some super energy, and now we're back into neutral. So we're seeing the flow. This is the flow pattern that we're going to follow with this build. We're just going to be as aggressive and arguably reckless as we possibly can with the activation of our abilities and gaining super energy. So because we cut our Chaos Reach off early, we are back at the halfway point already, pushing up again to make use of the Dynamo and Distribution on our class item. Now I'm a bit too exposed, so I am going to have to pull back here, but as you can see, my super is almost ready again. So this isn't like a clickbaity kind of build. You know, I use clickbait titles kind of all the time, but there's always a little bit of truth to it, and this build generates super ridiculously fast. I'm going to go ahead and activate it again, spin that around, get as many enemies cleared as possible, cut it off early to save energy. I don't want to waste any, and I'm going to have to pull back because I'm getting lit up by the Fallen. So far, so good, though. So far, so good. Is essentially what we've done, because we are generating just so much super energy. Our super feels like it's a part of our neutral game as opposed to it being a super. We break that guy's shield with a pulse grenade, then finish him off with the fusion rifle. And there we go. So because we get so much super energy, I'm gonna treat Chaos Reach almost like it's a grenade. So I'm gonna use it pretty much whenever there's an opportunity, even if it's just a couple of ads. There's a good chance that I'm going to use Chaos Reach to do. Okay, you need to stop spinning around, boy. But you get the idea, right? You get the idea. So now what we've got to do is we've got to bring this biscuit into the basket. So I'm going to try and do this kind of quickly. But you know what? I will use the bad Juju here to clear out some of these enemies. And that's going to put me at this close enough point. And as I sprint forward, I will get my super back. Whoop, missed the spot. Now I want to deal with this Thresher before it moves, because that's going to be a bit of a nuisance. I kind of don't need to use my super here. Now something that I've been thinking about a lot with this build is using, instead of distribution and dynamo, is going for a finisher that will use some of my some of my super energy, because there are times when I feel like I have a little bit of excess, because this build generates such a huge amount. I sometimes feel like it wouldn't hurt to spend a considerable amount of super energy on something like the Bulwark finisher or the special finisher to generate special ammo for the team. These are just things that are going through my mind, because after all, this is an unfinished build. Even though it's fully functional and it works extremely well, there are still questions that I have to ask myself. There are still pieces to the puzzle that don't feel as if they are fully completed yet. So one more kill with the bad Juju. That's going to put us at the close enough point. Now I can push in and blast the competition. I hope you're keeping count of how many supers I have used, because I am not. And I feel like it would have been cool if I was. It's a little bit weird, but normally I feel like it takes a bit more effort for me to kind of give the proof of concept about a build. But the rate at which we are generating our super and the frequency at which we are using Chaos Reach is kind of speaking for itself. We're going to continue on with the Nightfall, but man, oh man, that was an action-packed start. Let's try and end with a bang. I'm going to do one more major section of this Nightfall, and then I suppose that's going to do it for the testing of the build. But there is more that we can talk about regarding constructing a build like this and the thought process behind which mods I'm using, why I'm using some things over the other. We have our super, and I'm going to use it to clear out some of the ads, and then I'll spend the rest of it. Okay. Oh no! No! Not like this! Oh, man. Okay, I died in that Nightfall way more than I thought I was going to, but the proof of concept is still there. We generated a stupid amount of super energy. We used a lot of chaos reaches, and it was a lot of fun. But there is one more thing that I want to touch on before we wrap things up. For this build, there are some instances where I feel like I have more super energy than I know what to do with. And it's in these instances where I think finisher mods like the special finisher or the snap load finisher or the healthy finisher could be potentially valuable to us. So the special finisher generates special ammo for the entire team, and it requires 1/3 of our super energy. That's a lot. That's a greater amount than the close enough point, so it's going to take us a little while to generate that back. But in some situations, like right here, we've got a bunch of Fallen around, and I could use Chaos Reach to clear them out pretty easily. But at the same time, my special weapon would get the job done just fine. Right? I could easily use my special weapon to clear these guys out, or just use the bad Juju. My special weapon was empty before I used the finisher, so that was a bit problematic. But already I'm back at the close enough point, and I can regenerate my super, and then go in for a finisher on another guy, make another special brick. So this is something that could potentially be valuable, because we're not spending so much of our super energy on finishers that it's unreasonable for us to regain Chaos Reach for a moment when we need it, like when a boss comes out or whatever. And because we gain it so fast, I feel comfortable spending it on something like the special finisher. Or if we switch over, I'm going to pull into cover for a second and then switch over back to a Void class item. This one has Dynamo and Distribution. I'm going to leave Distribution, and I'm going to switch out Dynamo for Safe Finisher. Finisher Final Blows generate an overshield, requires 1/4. So that is exactly one section of our super, which takes 1 minute to generate. But if we're in that last section of the super, it's going to be significantly less time. So if I go ahead and maybe find a target that I don't kill in one shot because of String of Curses, then I can demonstrate the point that I'm trying to make. So like this drag right here. This drag right here. I'm going to use Safe Finisher on him. I get my overshield. 1/4 of the super was consumed. 1/4 of the super is regenerating already. This is something very interesting to consider playing with. Let's find another drag to do this again, so I can do it a little bit differently, right? We get a drag low. We spend 1/4 of our super. We activate our Rift distribution, giving us about 5%. That pushes us back to close enough. This is something very interesting to consider playing with, right? And we're not running around finishing every single enemy, but in these moments when I feel like, okay, using a Chaos Reach to kill a couple of Shanks and a Red Bar Servitor, that's not super valuable to me. But an Overshield to smooth out the difficulty a little bit, if I was in a Nightmare hunt perhaps, maybe giving somebody a nice overhand right to get an Overshield would be helpful. And then because we have the bad Juju, because we have all these ways to get our energy back incredibly quickly, we're in a sweet spot right now. And what a sweet spot it is. It's amazing to think that this build, in my mind, is not even complete and it's performing so well, but there are still some mods and elemental affinities that I think can be made better, so it's a work in progress. But man, oh man, I would definitely recommend slapping those Geomag stabilizers onto your Attunement of Control Warlock, getting as much intellect as you can, bring out the bad Juju, and reap the benefits. It's a fantastic build. You gotta try it out. With all of that said though, we're gonna wrap things up here by saying, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to support the channel more than you already do just by watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting, you can head over to patreon.com/iBluairJgR to become a patron. As always, the name of the game is Destiny 2, the name of the channel is iBluairJgR. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.